The music at my wedding reception was still playing when my father asked for the microphone. Guests smiled, expecting an emotional speech. Instead, he said, "From today, my daughter is no longer part of my financial life. She has chosen love over legacy." A soft, confused laughter moved across the hall. My husband Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. His suit was simple. No brand names, no shine. Exactly what my father disliked. Dad looked straight at him. "You may be a decent man, son, but you are not a capable one. She'll understand that soon." I felt every eye shift from my bridal outfit to Daniel's plain shoes. Humiliation doesn't always sound loud. Sometimes it hides inside polite clapping after a cruel sentence. I expected Daniel to react, to defend himself, to say something. He didn't. He just smiled. And somehow, that calm smile irritated my father even more. Dad handed the mic back like he had just announced a business decision, not embarrassed his daughter on her wedding night. In that moment, I understood something clearly. Rich people don't always control you with money. Sometimes they punish you by taking it away. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply stood up, held Daniel's hand, and walked out of my own reception before dessert was served. Whispers followed us to the exit. "She'll be back in a month. Love doesn't pay bills. She'll apologize soon." I didn't turn around. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't leaving in shame. I was leaving in clarity. They thought they had won. Part 2. Quiet build. Truth growing in background. Life after the wedding was quiet. No family driver, no credit cards, no luxury apartment. Just a small rented place, morning tea on the balcony, and Daniel working silently on his laptop for hours. He never complained. He never spoke badly about my father. He just worked. Calls, emails, meetings, late nights, weekends disappeared into plans I didn't fully understand. Once I asked him, "What are you building?" He smiled and said, "Stability," and that was enough. I watched quietly. Slowly, I started noticing the patterns. My father's business calls became longer, his meetings more tense. Relatives whispered about missed contracts, investor doubts, and competitors circling. My father's empire was facing problems he didn't talk about in front of me before. Meanwhile, we stayed calm. Our routine was simple. Daniel handled everything with focus, planning moves that seemed invisible to anyone else. Bills were paid. Savings were steady. Every day, we grew stronger, without a single word of complaint, without a single public display. Occasionally, I'd catch glimpses of Daniel's work. Screens full of numbers, contracts, and emails with names that sounded familiar, names connected to my father's company. I asked nothing. He explained nothing. He just continued. Friends and acquaintances who had once smirked at Daniel's simplicity now looked puzzled at his calm competence. They didn't know we were quietly building leverage that mattered more than money. Reputation, connections, influence. I realized something powerful. You don't need to prove yourself to the loud, arrogant people. The right actions, silent, consistent, intelligent, speak louder than any argument. 6 months passed. We were still living modestly, still quiet, but every move was intentional. Invitations from family came, but I rarely attended. My father's attempts to contact me directly were replaced by calls to Daniel. One evening, I noticed him closing a document carefully labeled with my father's company logo. He didn't say a word. I asked nothing. The message was clear. The stage was being set, and timing mattered more than drama. They were still talking about us in drawing rooms, laughing at our simplicity. Meanwhile, we were quietly building leverage in boardrooms, contracts, and conversations they didn't even know existed. 6 months after the wedding, the call finally came. Not to me, not even to a family intermediary, to Daniel. "We need to meet," my father said, voice measured, lacking the usual arrogance. It concerns a potential partnership. We arrived at the same office where, 6 months ago, I had sat in silence while he announced my disinheritance. The receptionist now stood when Daniel entered, greeting him with respect, something she had never done before. Dad was already there, sitting behind the massive mahogany desk. The air was tense, but the tension wasn't from anger. It was careful, calculated, respectful. He didn't look at me as his daughter. He looked at Daniel as an equal, someone whose judgment and ability mattered more than his own pride. "We've reviewed your proposal," he began, "and we believe a collaboration could be mutually beneficial." The words were simple. The meaning was monumental. For the first time, my father wasn't dictating terms. He was requesting them. Daniel listened quietly, nodding occasionally, asking precise, measured questions. Each reply was calm, intelligent, and direct. No ego, no flair, no theatrics. Every word carried authority. I watched from the side, a quiet observer. The same man who had mocked him at my wedding now leaned forward, taking notes, clearly impressed. My father's pride, once unshakable, had softened, not out of emotion, but because he realized he had underestimated Daniel. Dad paused, then met my eyes. For a moment I saw the old self, the man who had thought wealth and lineage could define me, now confronted with reality. He had to accept it silently, without excuses. "You've done well," he said finally, not to Daniel, but to both of us. "I misjudged the situation, and I misjudged people." Daniel gave a small, courteous nod. "We're here to create results, not prove points." And that was it. No insults, no vindictive remarks, no reminders of humiliation. Just calm authority. Just competence speaking for itself. As we walked out of the office, my father's gaze lingered. For the first time, he wasn't seeing me as his daughter, who chose love over legacy. He was seeing the wife of a man he now needed, a man who commanded respect silently, without theatrics, without noise. It struck me then, people often mistake quiet for weakness. They see composure and assume incompetence. They see patience and assume submission. They hear silence and assume fear. But silence is preparation. Calm is strategy. Patience is power. 6 months ago, they had thought Daniel was poor. They had thought I was weak. They didn't realize that we were quietly building leverage, quietly accumulating respect, quietly reshaping reality to our advantage. And now the lesson was clear, not through shouting or confrontation, but through action, presence, and undeniable competence. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. They didn't know I was simply busy becoming strong. From that moment onward, nothing was ever the same. The tables had turned, not through anger or revenge, but through the quiet, unstoppable authority that only results can command. Silence is not weakness. It is preparation. Respect is not demanded. It is realized too late. And as we walked away, I smiled, holding Daniel's hand. The world had shifted, and we had done it without a single shout, without a single public argument, without a single wasted word.